Hello, everyone, and welcome to my Primeval Series 2 ranking and review. Yes, we're doing a bit differently today. I thought try something different, see if it works. It might not work, and if it does work, I might use this format again. So I've made a little tribute to Series 2 of Primeval using some figurines that I have that I got way back then when the series came out. Future Predators up there. Got the Anomaly Detector device, Series 2, the vanilla release, complete box set, a few more figures, Stephen Hart and Silurian Scorpion figure, never been unboxed. Then I've got the two books that slot into Series 2, Shadow of the Jaguar and The Lost Island. Shadow of the Jaguar is actually a signed copy. These books slot into Series 2 in between episodes 3 and 4. So that's quite cool. I thought put it up and see if you guys like it. Got the Future Predators dangling there. And then I have the series 1 to 5 cover from the box set. I took it off because, I don't know, I just really liked it and it was starting to fall off a bit, so I thought, put it on my wall. It's such a cool design. I really like the effect, the 3D effect. I know you can't really see it here, but the Predator really looks like it's coming out of the screen. So yeah, this is my review of Series 2 in general. I think I'll save my overall thoughts for Series 2 to the end of the video and just get right into the ranking. So this is a very hard series to rank because it's my personal favourite of the Primeval franchise. Go back on the figures. Where do we start? I wouldn't say there's a bad episode in this series, however there are some weak ones. And for me the weakest story in this series is, and we'll go to the creature of this story, episode 3. Yes, for me this is probably the weakest due to the lack of mystery. I would say they try to build up a mystery plot, but it really doesn't work out. We know Valerie's the one with the saber tooth, although you don't really know what her motives are. She's not a bad person, but it just doesn't really work out for me. I love the use of the Smilodon saber-toothed tiger, as we've got the figure here. I love the whole feel of this episode, like the night locations, and they've got the night goggles on. They're in the amusement park. I think it's really cool, and I like how Valerie is more the villain in this episode. Although she's not a nasty person, she is covering for this creature, and it kind of shows that maybe it kind of leans towards the argument of maybe we should tell people about these creatures. So it's cool. Like I'm not like dissing it, but for me it's probably the weakest episode. For my full thoughts on this episode, please go and watch my episode 3 review. Okay, so after this episode, I don't really think there's an episode that I would say is weak at all. So I'm just going to go for my personal favourites. And unfortunately, the one that I would say is the weakest after all of these, or the one that just doesn't quite feel as strong as the others, is episode 1. We got the Raptor here. I love this model, I must say. I had this when I was a little kid. I love it. I think it's so cool, so detailed. Episode 1 is brilliant. It picks up where we left off, really, with Professor Cutter having no idea what's happened to Claudia Brown, and he's just thrown into this whole new world. We're introduced to the Ark, Oliver Leake. Sets up Series 2 really well. We have the cleaner guy, which he reoccurs in Series 3 as a clone. So this episode really does set it up. You have the tension with Cutter and Stephen after the affair's just been exposed. Connor shoots Abby, which is a really good scene. Abby in a Series 2 costume here in this figure. It's great. It's a really good episode. And also it's the cover of the Series 2 DVD, which is, must say, it's my favourite DVD cover. It's really cool. And obviously, of course, we're introduced to the wonderful Jenny Lewis. She makes her first appearance in this episode. She comes in at the very end, and it's like a big cliffhanger that leads into episode 2. And I adore Jenny. She's a great character. Very different from Claudia Brown. But I'm so glad Lucy Brown returned for this series. And it's a whole new dynamic between her and Cutter. And this leads into my next episode in the ranking at number 3. Or would that be number 5, actually, because we're going to go from worst to best. So it'd be number 5, is episode 2. Yes, episode 2 is my 5th in the ranking. There's no figures for this episode because they didn't release a worm figure, so I'll just keep it on Jenny, because it's more her episode, actually, like her first adventure with the team. I like this one. The opening for me with this lady cutting herself is always stood out to me as way too dark, makes no sense. I don't like Helen doing that. It just doesn't make sense. Sorry, my throat's a bit sore. Got a bit of a cold. It just doesn't make sense, and I mean it's a cool scene with the pterodactyl, and it's shot really well. The music's eerie with the, but I just don't see why she did it. I think maybe it was a cry for help for Stephen, so she can be like, "Oh, my poor Stephen, I've cut my leg," but it just doesn't make any sense. But the worms are really cool. They're really dark, creepy villain, villainous monsters. Like they're really creepy. The way they just splot all over you and then they eat you whole. Like there's a scene where Connor gets his head devoured by one and they have to cut it off with a sword. Luckily, Connor's head stays on. But it's a great scene. It's like, watch where you're throwing that thing. Or when Cutter has one on his leg and Jenny slices it in half. And he's like, watch where you're throwing that thing. It's always stands out for me. It's a really good episode. I it used to be my least favourite, mainly because of the Helen scene. It just really put me off. But no, now I can appreciate it for what it is. I'm really glad I continued watching after that. Because it really did put me off as a kid. It terrified me. The fact that Helen, I thought she cut her leg off. Like, I wish they just went back and explained what the hell that was. But it will never be explained, and something we've got to live with, I'm afraid. So my next episode in the ranking at number 4 would be, and this is really hard because I love this episode. Episode 5 with the Silurian Scorpion, Stephen Hart, Nick Cutter, and Taylor. A great episode, but for me, just doesn't hold up as well compared to the top 3 in my ranking. And I mean, this episode I gave it 10 out of 10, so it's a brilliant. You know, I love this episode. I love all these episodes, but it's just not as it's just not as strong like episodes that I'm about to discuss. I'll get to them why I think they're so strong, but this one's a really cool adventure. I mean, it's episode focused on Stephen and Cutter, and their relationship. This is like the deterioration of their relationship in this episode. It's the first time we really see the threat of the anomalies, like being trapped in the past, which is something we never really see in the first 2 series up until this point, and it's something that does occur again in series 3 and 4 in particular. And it's a great premise. A little girl goes through the anomaly and they have to go through and save her. And I mean, the Silurian Scorpions are great creature designs, one of my favourite creatures. They really remind me of the worms from Tremors, a great film franchise. You should check it out if you haven't done so already. Yeah, I love this episode. I love Cutter in this episode. I love Taylor. I really want Taylor to return if the show ever comes back. I think she's a great character, well fleshed out. I know a few people find her annoying, but I would say give the episode a go again. I don't think she's as annoying as people think she is, but that's just me. Yeah, this is a great episode. Great visuals. We're in Silurian era. I don't know where they filmed this. I think it was Africa, Morocco. But yeah, great desert. It's like the whole thing is just beautiful to watch because it's in such a lovely landscape. I'll move the camera over here. Yeah, I love this episode, 10 out of 10. But yeah, so it's going to be at number 4. But for number 3 in my ranking, I'm going to have to pick this wonderful episode, episode 4, with the mer creatures. The second future creature to ever appear in the show after these guys. And I think they're really cool. I think they're underrated. I think a lot of people don't like the mer creatures, but I think they're really cool. I mean, the figurine for this is awesome. You really get to see like the colours and just how weird the creature looks. I mean, look at it. It's like a dog war ape. Creepy. This has always been one of my favourite episodes. It's a great character character development between these two, Abby and Connor. And this is the episode where Connor tells Abby that he loves her. Abby's kidnapped by these creatures, which is cool. You get some great underwater filming, some really eerie shots from Hannah Spirit. Like the acting between these two is great, and it's also the first time Connor starts to doubt Cutter, which is something we've never really seen before because it's normally Connor who looks up to Cutter, but this time Connor blames Cutter for Abby's disappearance. He says that like he could have done more. Lester, this guy here, hires Stephen as team leader. He fires Cutter because he thinks Cutter was irresponsible in the disappearance of Abby, and it's kind of like their relationship being tested again. Like, will Stephen do a better job? And ultimately, it's Cutter who was right all along, and that's a massive blow for Stephen. And obviously, like they rebuild their friendship, Connor and Cutter. But it's the first time you really see that, and I think it's the only time that Connor looks down at Cutter, which is really interesting. And also, everyone kind of disowns Cutter in this episode, and it's Jenny's the only person who kind of is there for him, and it's great to see their relationship really coming. Because there's a new dynamic between the two, although she is the same actress, and essentially, she's very similar to Claudia, but very different, and we see that it's not going to be the same for them, and he has to rebuild their whole relationship together, both Jenny and Cutter. And there's some great scenes between the two, especially with the future shark. It goes to kill Jenny, goes to eat her, and Stephen and Cutter save her, and there's a great scene in the arc where she's just like, do you know what, you can call me what you want for tonight, but for the record, I really hate that name, because Cutter's like, oh, sorry, Claudia. He's like, oh, he keeps calling her Claudia, which is great. A great episode. I'd love to see the mer creatures return at some point, actually. I think they're so cool, so creepy. So that's number 3. At number 2 in my episode ranking, and this is really tough for me because it's out of the finale episodes 7 and 6, and I love both of them dearly, but I'm gonna have to put episode 7 at number 2. Yes, I love episode 7. I think it's a great ending and conclusion for this series, but for me, episode 6 is just more drama and more tension, but we'll get to that in a minute. This episode is fantastic. We get all these creatures coming back and more from series 1. We get the future predators, the Silurian scorpion, raptors. It's just crazy. All these characters are put through it. Even Lester, he's he's trying to get over what Leek did to him last week in the previous episode, episode 6. So he's out for revenge. Helen, Cutter, and Stephen, who's all the way over here in his little box, I would say it's their episode. It's their main focus is their relationship, and it's kind of the last time they can have this argument in the show about who's right in all of this. Stephen, Cutter, Helen. It was Helen right? Was Cutter right? And ultimately we see Stephen makes his ultimate sacrifice, and it's his last episode, and he really redeems himself in this. I mean, that's what I love so much about this episode in particular. It's me really feeling for Stephen for once. Normally I'm with Cutter, and I'm always with Cutter on this particular dilemma of, should we tell people about the anomalies? No, we shouldn't, in my opinion. Is it right for him what he's done with Helen? No, it's not. Cutter's in the right here. So it's really Stephen redeeming himself, and he sacrifices himself in the long game to protect all these guys and the human race, really, because if it wasn't for him, these bad boys would have got out, and it would have caused carnage and maybe the end for mankind. So it's a really dramatic episode. It's nice to see all the creatures return. There's a nice scene with the Smilodon and Abby. Caroline as well redeems herself with Rex in the end. She gets Rex out, she saves him. The funeral scene at the end is probably one of my favourite scenes of all time in Primeval. The Tom dies is played perfectly. Cutter finally letting go of Claudia. New start for Series 3. Perfect. I just wish Series 3 was as good as how they made it out it would be. But it's great. You have the great cliffhanger with Helen, with the cleaner clones, and it sets up Series 3 really well. And in fact, there's a book that follows called Extinction Event that picks up after the events of Stephen's funeral. So I might do a review on that, actually, because it's quite important to the plot. But yeah, for me, it's great. But episode 6 is my favorite episode of this series. The mammoth on the M25 just clinches it for me. I'm sorry. I mean, I do love all of these episodes. I think I'd give most of them 10 out of 10. Probably the weakest, like a 7 out of 10. But that's about it. I mean, this series is great. But for me, the best episode is episode 6 with the Colombian mammoth. Really sets up this series, like the tension for this finale. Everything's been building to this. Cutter and Steven obviously fall out in this episode. Their relationship is dead. Uh, Connor and Abby are arguing still over the whole Caroline stealing Rex. Jenny gets a lot to do in this episode. Like, she has to deal with the press, the guy who comes back in series 3. She has to deal with Cutter thinking she's a traitor. It's just a massive episode in scope and scale. I mean, you have the mammoth on the M25, which is probably the best creature incursion they've ever had on the show, and I think that's probably what inspired the actions focus of series 3, because it is full of scale and action and drama and tension, and it feels like you're watching a movie at some points with the mammoth throwing vehicles everywhere and crushing them. It's just perfect, absolutely brilliant. It's just what you want for an epic finale, and I do count this as part of the finale because it's episode 1 of the finale, part 1. Also, one of the main reasons I think that I swayed towards this is my favourite out of the two, out of episode 6 and 7, is probably the return of these guys, and the fact that this particular civil servant gets a lot more to do. Lester really is put through the mill at this point. Like, he has to defeat a future predator on his own, and he's not even part of the main team, so it's really cool to see Lester getting into it. And the way he doesn't back down to Leek, he kind of accepts his death if it is his death. Like, he just says, "You really are a tiresome little man," and just hopes that the mammoth will stop it, and it does. And it's an awesome scene with the predator hanging off the mammoth's tusk. My favourite um, bit of the episode is probably that, actually. So yeah, that's my ranking. So the weakest for me, I do it in from the bottom to the top. It's episode 3, followed by episode 1, then episode 2, then episode 5, then episode 4, then episode 7, and then episode 6 at number 1. So that's my ranking. I might not have gone into a lot of detail, mainly because I've done the reviews for these episodes. It's just my brief thoughts. So check out the playlist that I'll attach this video to, my series 2 reviews, and then you'll get a more in-depth feel to how I feel about these episodes. Series 2 overall review. Absolutely brilliant. The best Primeval series there has been, I think. Does it live up to Series 1? Yes. Is it better than Series 1? Yes. I love Series 1, but I'm sorry, they just went all out on this one, went even further, and it really paid off. I mean, we have some great creatures, from the Velociraptor, the first dinosaur the Primevals ever had, the saber-toothed tiger, awesome, the mer creature, really cool future design, future creature. I mean, they really had a hard job because the future predators were so cool and so iconic to the show. But I think they did well with the mer creature. The Silurian scorpion's great. The worms, the mammoth is awesome. If you check out my creature ranking for further thoughts on the creatures, the characters really, really well developed. I mean, we see that arcs have really gone a lot further than they have in Series 1. I mean, Series 1, you get to know the characters, and that's what I love so much about Series 2. You know these characters already, so it's like, what happens next? You further develop them, and brilliant. I mean, the new characters we get, Caroline and Leek, perfect. It's a shame it's their only series, but I think it works. I think if they came back, it wouldn't be as good. Of course, we have the anomaly detection device. This is the handheld anomaly detector model. I got it as a kid. It's pretty cool. It's like one of my prized possessions of my Primeval merchandise. I really like the fact that we also further develop the knowledge of the team of their anomalies. Like, now they can detect these anomalies. It's like every year we learn a little bit more about the anomalies, which is great, and it's part of the mystery. So yeah, I love the fact that we do that now. The Ark is a perfect setting as the main hub. I prefer it to Cutter's Lab and the Home Office that we have in Series 1. The Ark is brilliant. I love the scope of this series. I mean, the mystery. Is there a traitor? Who's the traitor? What do they want? What's their intentions? What's their goals? The settings. I mean, we go to prehistoric desert in episode 1 with the velociraptors, and we have the fog in the office. That's awesome. It just builds up. I mean, this series is just they up one from series 1. I mean, series 1's great, but this is just like, can we go even further with this? So, like, how good it could be? Yes, we can. And I would give this series a 10 out of 10. Overall, I think it's a fantastic series. One of the best Primevals, and I think one of the best pieces of TV ever made. I'm so glad that I have it on DVD. I can watch it whenever I want. It's so much nostalgia for me. This series in particular, it was the peak of Primeval, and next time I will be doing my series 3 episode 1 review, and we'll start to talk about the decline of that peak. So join me for that, and hope you enjoyed this new format. It's different for me. Sorry if I keep and there's a few mistakes, but it's the first time I've ever done something like this, so just getting used to it. So thanks for watching. Please comment down below. What's your ranking? How would you rank it? And how would you review this series overall? So yeah, like and comment. See you next time. Take care. Bye for now.